to you in part by vpro.com, your expert guide to intentional revenue growth, in conjunction with University of Georgia's Grady College of Journalism and Mass Communication. We just wanted to let you know, in preparation of this webinar, that all participants are in listen-only mode, which means that you are currently muted and cannot engage in vocal conversation. In the event, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to use your control panel and ask us questions in which the moderator will be able to respond. If any attendees have dialed in by phone, please feel free to select the telephone option upon login and enter the audio pin that was provided by GoToMeeting. At this point, we'll hop right into introductions and lead right into our webinar. So, hello everyone, this is currently the moderator. My name is Kelvin Rutledge, and I serve as the Director of Experiential Programs at the Grady College of Journalism and Mass Communication. Here with Grady, I work collaboratively with students, alumni, partners, and organizations to provide a variety of resources and opportunities here for our college population. And I have the distinct pleasure and honor to introduce our presenter today. For over 25 years, Joseph Olewitz has been responsible for revenue growth at major global digital agencies selling services to global brands. He is passionate about relationship selling based on client-centered, pragmatic business development programs he designs. He was part of the global management team at digital agencies US WebEx, CKS, MerchFirst, and Digital LBI, where he was responsible for USA and intentional revenue growth. After leaving LBI, he founded and became Chief Revenue Officer and Principal Consultant of 22nd Story Strategies Incorporated. Built around his trademark tagline, intentional revenue growth, representing a business development discipline that incorporates clear goals and key performance indicators to deliver strategic advisory services and follow-up tactical execution plans. Joseph recently developed Virtual Chief Revenue Officer, LLC, an online service business created for entrepreneurs and executives responsible for increasing services revenue in any size business. vpro.com, your expert guide to intentional revenue growth, provides tools, workshops, and support for the creation and implementation of a successful revenue growth plan as though they were developed by a staff CRO, but at a tiny fraction of the cost. In addition to his senior management skills and international leadership experience, he personally generated multi-million-dollar new business revenues from a diverse group of global brands that were his agency's digital clients. Throughout his career, he has been on the leading edge of introducing innovative and new digital platforms and is currently engaged to apply his methodology to reposition, market, and sell multiple service offerings for clients of all sizes. Joseph's diverse background informs his ability to guide businesses in many different verticals. Before joining the agency world, he was the CEO of a large men's apparel manufacturer and CEO of a film video production where he has won an Emmy as executive producer of a PBS documentary about Wall Street future trades. Joseph is broadly followed on social media, where he writes about building long-term, trusted advisor relationships, finding new client opportunities, and closing new business. He is a coach and mentor to CEOs, entrepreneurs, and speaks frequently inside corporations and at industry events, including the Hertz visiting keynote speaker during PR Week at his alma mater, the University of Georgia. He has also served on the boards of multiple nonprofit institutions, on the advisory boards of several digital startups. He loves opera, virtual reality, science fiction, and all sorts of games, gardening on his NYC terrace, and is the quintessential New Yorker who says the city is him, not the other way around. Without further ado, I'll pass it to Joseph Olewitz, who will be facilitating our session today.
Wow, thanks, Kelvin. I thought that was going to be the short bio. I'm going to have to shorten that, everybody, but hopefully now you know a little about me. And I'm really excited to be here today, and I'm just going to jump right in. As I think Kelvin said, don't hesitate if you have questions to put them in the chat box, and he will gather all the questions during the event. And as soon as we're finished, which will take about 30 minutes of presentation, then we'll go right into Q&A and address all of your questions. So this is the first of a series of 3 webinars that we've put together. It's a sequence, actually, with a logic flow. The first one today is personal branding. Assuming that we discover things about our personal brand and how to maximize it, the next thing would be to promote it, to network. And For the second webinar, we're going to talk about networking, different ways to capitalize on your personal brand. And then assuming that you're successfully networking, somebody's going to want to do business with you. And the third one, we'll talk about basic negotiation skills, establishing terms and conditions to do business with those people who want to do business with you and your brand that you found through networking. So there is a logic flow. We invite you to join the other sessions, and we'll give you the dates and the information about that later. Hopefully this will be valuable to you as we go forward. How it all came about, as Kelvin said, I was delivering a keynote speech in Ad PR Week at the university, and during that week I also had several meetings with the faculty at the university in which we talked about ways in which students and people in the marketplace in general could learn things from business people. In my case, because I'm a graduate of the university, we were talking about me, and then we realized that there was information that could be shared with people about to leave school and go to work, people who are already at work looking to maximize their success in business. And you may be wondering, I'm not a branding expert, I'm not a branding person, but I know how important branding is to success in business, and that's where I'll be talking about it. I'm going to give you some good ideas about why Virtual Chief Revenue Officer is involved with this series. Personal branding is very important as a core element for success everywhere, but especially in business, all the different aspects of business. It all starts with the personal brand, and then your personal brand occurs everywhere. It appears at home, at work, with family, with friends, with strangers. And by the way, it can be working for you when you're alone or when you're sleeping as well. And at VCRO, that's short for Virtual Chief Revenue Officer, my company, at VCRO, we talk a lot about being intentional. We talk about setting your goal. What is it that you want your personal brand to be in this case? And then going about making sure that that's what it becomes, that you maximize it because you say so. And I'm going to talk about how to do that as we go through the various steps we're outlining here today. So let's start with your personal brand. It's interesting that this discussion will be about proactively creating from scratch your brand or reinventing it if you already have one, molding it as you go through life, understanding how it's received in the world, which is a very important aspect of it. You may think your brand is X, but other people may see you as Y. And who are those people? Who are those people who have a sense of who you are? And we'll talk a little about that as we go. And then making sure that it serves you in those circumstances I mentioned while you're aware of them and also while you're sleeping. So let's jump in and talk about that. Whether you realize it or not, you already have a personal brand. Everybody does. You have it with friends, with family, in your community, whatever that community might be, and in business, if you have a job or if you're working somewhere, or if you do business with people. You've actually left a personal footprint everywhere that you've stepped. And you've left a digital footprint every time you've been connected to the internet. And perhaps even more important, as you move through the workforce, as you move through your career, your personal brand plays a large role in everything you do and how every interaction you have with other people, and whether they seek you out in the first place, how you interact with them, how they interact with you. Your established personal brand, the one that's evident in your first interaction with someone, whether it's a meeting, an interview, or whatever, will dominate people's perception of you. And then you manifest it continually over time. It'll set you apart from other people. And even before that interaction begins, people will come to the interaction with some sense of who you are because of your personal brand. So I'd like to talk about personal brand going back a bunch of years. In 1997, Tom Peters, who was the famous business guru who wrote a book called In Search of Excellence, a lot of other things, but that's what I think he's most famous for, said that we're the CEOs of our own company. We are the CEO of me Inc. And to do business today, our most important job is to be the head marketer for the brand called you. Meaning, you have a business, you have a product to sell or a service to sell, or you have a job to do, you're a subject matter expert or an execution expert in some area, whether you're a writer or a creative director or whatever you might be. You have that job to do, but a lot of it gets done most efficiently, most effectively in interactions with others, where your brand is critical and important. So how do you think others see you? Take a few words to describe what is your brand. If you can, write it down. You don't need to write anything long. I'm going to ask you to write a few things down. Do it on paper if you can. Do it digitally. Doesn't matter. And we'll come back to it at the end of the presentation. But what are you known for? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What can people count on you for? What impression of you would a networking contact take away, or a job interview take away from an interaction with you? And an important question, are you consistent everywhere? Are you a different person at home than you are at work, than you are at school, or wherever you might be? And put those notes aside, and I'll ask you to pull them out again towards the end of this presentation. I'm going to give you an example based on me. So what's my personal brand? I hope it's what I want it to be. I definitely have thoughts about what it is, and I'm constantly reviewing it. People, based on how I operate my life and what I've been able to learn from asking people, is that I'm trustable, that I tell the truth, that I have integrity, that I'm outspoken. People say, what you see is what you get. I say things pretty directly. Everybody's not like that, and everybody shouldn't be like that. That's part of my brand. People say I'm generous, that I'm willing to give before I get, and that I focus on win-win or win-win-win. I'm always interested in others getting benefit, figuring in the long run that will inure to my own benefit. But that's not what I'm about. What I'm about is helping others win. It's an interesting thing that people come back to me and ask me for advice over many years, even if I'm not currently working with them or for them. And the reason is that they trust me. And they know that if I don't think that them hiring me is a smart thing for them to do, that I'll tell them that. That's all part of my brand. It's all part of how I'm perceived. But I would only have that in my head if I were just thinking about it. One of the important things is to constantly ask people to check others. I ask my friends, I ask relatives, I ask associates. It's a wonderful exercise. For the most part, people tell me what I think my brand is. And every now and then, by asking, I discover something that either I didn't realize is a strength or a weakness, or I discover something that I want to change or improve. And that, taking the temperature of the marketplace, is really critical. There's a meme in the marketplace. There's a thing that people say about doing business, essentially that people do business with people they like and trust. In the end, especially if there's a choice, how will you succeed? People will choose to do things with you, whether it's transact business, hire you for a job, engage you as a partner, whatever it might be. Essentially, if they like you and trust you. Now, if you look around and ask, you might be surprised. Everyone will not like you, and everyone will not trust you. I'd like everybody to like me and trust me, and I'm sure that there are people who don't. But the more that I focus on how am I perceived and how do people feel about me, looking beyond myself, looking to the marketplace, I know that I can improve the quality of my interactions and therefore the success that I achieve. Now, I'm going to give you at the end of this presentation a couple of slides of bibliography and reference links and things. One of them is an article from the New York Times where this particular image came from, called "Do Your Friends Actually Like You?" It's a very interesting article. I suggest that you read it, and it may give you an insight to how you interact with other people and how they interact with you. So before we drill down even deeper into your personal brand, what it is, how you can improve it, let's talk about companies. So as we know, companies have brands. Here are three pretty famous company brands. I'm sure that everybody on the webinar now has a sense of IKEA, a sense of Coca-Cola, a sense of Uber. They're in the news. You interact with them and their products. You have a sense of what they stand for. In the corporate world, a lot of our perception about people comes from advertising campaigns and promotion and news articles and things like that. It's not quite the same with individuals. We'll drill down to individuals in a moment. But keep in mind that these people's brands are out there and we have a sense of them. However, the thing to keep in mind is that nothing is permanent. Uber, for example, is changing as we speak. Some of you may know that the CEO of Uber has gotten embroiled in a controversy over some political points of view that he expressed. Uber's business was affected by it, negatively. So his company brand changed based on things that he did. So there is an interaction here about what is the perception of people, of individuals, as well as of company brand. But more than companies, we're really interested in people. So let's think, if we think about famous people before we drill down to ourselves, who are some of the people that you have an impression of? I'm sure that some names pop into your mind. One of the first ones that popped into my mind is Pope Francis. I admire him. I think he's a great guy. Look at this picture. You get a full sense of the personality and the brand just by the fact that he's reaching out to slap 5 with the Swiss Guard. Everything that you do impacts your personal brand and the perception of you, what kind of person you are, how you do business, how much fun you are to be with, all those kinds of things. Let's look at another famous person. How about Meryl Streep? A lot of people think she's a great actress. A lot of people see that she has passionate political points of view and she expresses them. Some agree with her, some don't, but it's all part of her brand, of who you think of when you think of Meryl Streep. Or how about someone like Mark Zuckerberg? Can be a lightning rod for some about some issues, but clearly you know things about him beyond maybe you've never met him. You know things about him and what he stands for. And I think that all three of these people have a good sense of the fact that they have this reputation, which is their brand, and that it serves them. And that when they do something, they think carefully about whether it will continue to serve them or not. So I would ask about one more person. I don't know how many of you followed Lance Armstrong. Maybe you don't even know who he is, but there was a time I was an active and avid long-distance cyclist, and Lance Armstrong was a hero of mine when he won 7 Tour de France titles. And then all of a sudden it all went south because we discovered that everything he was putting out there as his brand was not genuine. He was cheating, and he got caught at it, and he is no longer my idol. His brand was totally tarnished by one thing he did. It doesn't mean that he was any less a good person. It doesn't mean that his foundation still wasn't doing good things, but it meant that I now seriously doubt whether I can trust him. Something he did, or something someone did or didn't do, will consistently affect their brand. So thinking about that brand says a lot about someone before you even meet them. Let's bring it closer to home. What's the brand of the best teacher you ever had? What's the brand of your best friend? Do you have a business idol? What's their brand? Think about what it would mean to you to be interacting with those people. There are some of those people, your best teacher, for example, you might go to for advice on one thing, but not on something else. Your best friend, you might tell everything to, or you might ask for support on everything, but on the other hand, maybe you wouldn't because of his or her brand. And the same is true of your business idol. Would you model your business career on your business idol because of his or her success, or would you not do that because you're concerned about something you know about their brand? It's important to be flexible as well and consistent. Everyone has a brand. You already have a brand. It's already out there because of the people you interact with every day, and of course because of the internet. Google your name. I mean, I have a unique name, Olewitz, but if you don't have such a unique name, Google your name with your hometown or with some other keyword and see what comes up. You might be surprised if somebody's going to go to a meeting with you and they do a Google search, what would they learn about you that they would bring with them to the meeting about your personal brand? Or if you're going for an interview, what would be the thing that people might be thinking about you that you're not even aware that they're thinking about because of the impression that you've made with this trail that you've left through your life? You know, think Uber and Lance Armstrong again. Those are just two examples, but you know that that kind of thing can happen. Now, you remember that I said earlier that I do a lot in our company about talking about declaring your intention and then manifesting it, making it happen. As you move through life, from job to job, from company to company, from project to project, your brand can happen to you. In other words, what the things that happen can impact your brand. Or there's another way to approach it. That is, you can cause your brand to be. You can be consciously aware of the things you do and the impact that they will have on your personal brand, on how you're perceived by others, and take steps to make sure that you are reinforcing what it is that you want people to know about you. Now, I'm not talking about manipulation here because being genuine and being authentic is critical. I think I'll say it several times before this is over. But you want to be aware that everything you do and say can impact your brand. There's a very interesting concept that I've been fascinated with now for a couple of years, and it's called Sonder. If you type Sonder into the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it will return nothing. The word doesn't exist there. But it exists if you Google it. You'll find a rock group, I think. You'll find a German word called Sonder. I found it in a thing called the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. And that dictionary is just a compendium of invented words. It's made-up words that serve particular meanings, and Sonder is in there. I'd like to talk to you about Sonder because it's a very interesting thing to understand how you're perceived by others. Human beings usually believe ourselves to be the center of the universe, and that's not a bad thing. But the thing to keep in mind is that every other person on the planet also believes themselves to be the center of the universe. We can't all be the center of the universe. However, we can each be the center of our own universe. And allowing that conundrum to exist empowers you to find the true center at any given moment in any specific interaction with any other person. Let me read you the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. I don't like to read from slides, but I'm going to read this because I think it's important about Sonder. The realization that each random passerby is living a life as vivid and complex as your own, populated with their own ambitions, friends, routines, worries, and inherited craziness. It's an epic story that continues invisibly around you like an anthill, sprawling deep underground, with elaborate passageways to thousands of other lives that you'll never know existed, in which you might appear only once as an extra sipping coffee in the background, as a blur of traffic passing on the highway, as a lighted window at dusk. Now, the irony of reading this is we're reading it about someone else. But if someone else were reading this, they might be talking about you. It's really important to understand, and I think that understanding that other people see their own lives as the center of the universe is very important to figuring out how you fit in it and how they might deal with what you're presenting to them and who you're presenting to them as yourself. I wrote a blog post about this. The link to it is in the at the end, in the list of resources at the end. It's in a LinkedIn post, and it ties Sonder to life and business. This is life in general, but it ties specifically to business. So once you understand your personal brand and once you understand that it's important in terms of your potential success in business, this is, after all, a series of webinars about success in business, you have to promote it. You have to promote who you are. You have to promote that brand. You'll network. You should speak up in meetings and online. If you don't speak up and operate from that brand that you've created for yourself, people won't know. They won't know who you are. They won't know what your opinions are. You can use social media and you can do it on purpose, but it is critical that you always be authentic. If you try to be a certain person just for a given moment or a given objective or to impress a given person, and that's not really authentically who you are, people will know, and it will not succeed. There are other ways and other things to think about when you're promoting. You have to be a good listener. Think Sonder. Think about the other person and what's going on in their life. Let them say things to you and ask yourself, wow, how does that impact my interactions with people? I had a conversation with someone about a week or two ago who said to me, I really know that you are saying something smart and important for my business. I know that you mean well, but you know, you're so passionate about what you're telling me, you're not listening to what's going on in my life and what I'm thinking about now and the pressures I'm under. And I did, whoa, wait a minute. He's right. I was so committed to giving him what I had to give him that I thought was of value. I wasn't taking into account where he was. So be a good listener. Be generous. Think making a contribution to others. Build relationships before you ask for something. You know, people do things like going on LinkedIn and saying, I've got this great thing to offer, and don't even think about getting into a relationship with someone, getting in step with someone, having a common ground before you ask for something. And there are a lot of people in the world who have done stuff that works. Copy literally. Use the stuff that other people have done. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to create everything from scratch at the very beginning. Now, we talk about online, we talk about social media, we talk about email, all the different ways that you can manifest your personal brand. There's something here that's very important to keep in mind. When it's online, it's there forever. It's never going away. So at the risk of being repetitive, let me say, always be authentic. Remember when you put something out there that you might change your point of view. You might change something going forward. But it will always be there, whatever it is. And you need to be, if you're authentic, you can always defend it. Keep that in mind as you put stuff out there about you, about your business, about your point of view, Everything you do and say online will be permanent. Oh, and by the way, one other thing. When you put stuff up about yourself, use a clear, high-resolution picture of yourself. A lot of people want to know who they'd be dealing with. A picture helps. Some people love shadow outlines and really cute avatars. I tend to ignore requests from people I don't know who are unwilling to post a picture of themselves, only because I don't get a good sense of who they are. It's like the first meeting. So use a good, clear, high-resolution picture of yourself. Don't do this. Don't use that. I don't know how many of you recognize Alfred E. Newman, Melvin Kosnowski from Mad Magazine. He followed me around when I was a kid a lot. But a picture of you, really you, is going to be much more powerful to endorse and secure the brand that you're putting out. So let's take a minute here and look. You remember earlier I asked you to think about how others see you. Take a look at those notes that you wrote. Think about what you said and ask, is your personal brand assessment still correct? We've looked at people, we've looked at corporations, we've looked at individuals. Does your brand need work? Does your personal brand need work? We know you have one. How do you manifest in the world? What do you think people really would say if you asked them? And is that the way you want to be perceived? Very important to keep asking yourself over time, just because you go through this process, come up with a clear statement of your brand and where you are, that you might want to change it, you might want to tweak it, you might want to adjust it as time goes on. And I encourage you to do that. But first things first, craft your personal brand statement. Do it now. Do it in writing. By the way, you can do it digitally, of course, but I think something happens to our neurons when we write on paper with a pencil or a pen. Do it before you write another blog post, before you create or update your LinkedIn profile, before you apply for a job, before you ask your boss for a raise, whatever it is that you're going to do. Get a good sense of what your current personal brand is and what you might want to do to mold it, shape it, change it as you go. Oh, by the way, for those of you who are late, you should also do this before you go on an internet dating site. You might be smiling, but it's to make a point. Remember, your brand will follow you everywhere. If you're being different people in different circumstances, that's not an authentic, consistent brand. It's just you being a chameleon to achieve an objective that is manipulative. Don't do that. Stay true to who you are. It will pay off in the long run. There are some key points here to remember over time. Let me run through them real quickly. Be authentic. That's critical. Life and work brands are indistinguishable. You are who you are, and people know that. And if you're trying to be someone else, they will sense it if they don't see it clearly. Address what sets you apart about your personal brand. What makes you different from the other person? Make your brand promise exciting. Is what you say you are, what you say you're committed to, what you're passionate about, what you are living for. Is all that something that turns other people on? Is it exciting? And buy your domain name now if you haven't already done it. By the way, name your kids after you find out if the domain is available, if you're going to have kids. The domain name can be really important going forward to where you're going to put things as you move through life, through business, through work. Important to know who you are and where you're going to promote it as well. And the focus should be what's your value add to others? What will they get out of interacting with you? Ask yourself some questions. How do you operate in the world? What describes your style? And you can ask these questions over and over again as you go. What are your strengths and weaknesses? And remember, if you're doing what I suggested, you're checking this with other people as well as you go to make sure that it's not just your good idea, but you do a reality check. What turns you on? What's your passion? What can people count on you for? These are all aspects, not 100% of your personal brand, but all very important aspects of your personal brand. And the secret here is that while you're focusing on you and who you are and how you want to be perceived, it's really not about you. It's about the value that you're going to contribute to others. I hope that that's been clear and that it's been valuable. There are a series of resource links. There's no way we could do everything in this short webinar. So I've created a couple of slides here, linked to my Sonder post, some specialists in personal branding, some Forbes and Harvard Business Review articles and other things like that. This is all available. We will send you the link to where you can download the video of this presentation and the slides, in which case you can follow up on all of these. And I hope that that will help you as you go forward figuring out your brand. The next sessions in the series are networking, which happens next month. And we will send you this link as well in the follow-up email. And then the third in the series, which is basic negotiations, will be on April 11th. And we will send you that as well, along with the information about where you can get the recording of this event. So I hope that's been valuable. I'm going to turn it over to, I haven't been watching the chat, so I don't know if we have any questions or which ones we have. Kelvin, are you there? Do we have questions?
Hey, Joseph. So at this point, we don't have any questions posed, but let's give a minute to see if anybody would like to throw any into the chat box for you.
Okay. Okay. If we don't have any questions, I believe that we don't need to keep you on just for the sake of it. You can follow up afterwards with me or with Kelvin. You should have our email addresses, but there they are again. You will get a follow-up email. We also have a very short three-question rating survey that will pop up when you log off. We ask that you please fill that in. So that we know if we're doing the right thing for you here. And don't hesitate to send us any communication you'd like about this or future webinars.
Hey, Joseph, we just actually got two questions that just came through the chat box, so I'd love for you to respond to them. So the first question that I received is, who do you recommend asking for your opinions on if you are correct on your self-evaluation of your personal brand?
That's a great question. First, let me share personally about that. When I first embarked on this, I was actually doing a seminar a landmark education seminar in which it was a suggestion made that I go out and do that, and that I talk to anybody and everybody. And I was a little concerned about opening myself up to criticism. What would people say? But then I just bit the bullet and I said, okay, I'm going to ask everybody. So I asked people I do business with. I asked associates and clients. I asked some family members. I actually asked my doorman, believe it or not, in my apartment building. And it's very interesting that if you encourage people when you ask the questions to not walk on it, not to be delicate, but to tell you straight out. Tell them you can handle it, and you encourage them to tell you if it's good, bad, or indifferent. Everything is okay, nothing's off limits. And like I said earlier, a lot of the things people told me were things I would have expected people to say, but every now and then I got some really good insights from people who were willing to be open and direct and honest with me. So the answer to your question is there's no specific list of people, but I would definitely say ask people who know you, and also ask some people who don't know you that well, and see what they think. See how you're manifesting.
Great. And so another question that came in says that I just Googled myself and there's old stuff I don't necessarily want out there. How do I clean up or edit past items that are showing?
Um, that's a great question. I actually, I know that there are I don't know the names of them, but I know there are services that for, in some cases, a small amount of money and in other cases very expensive, will go out and clean up your internet trail. As I said earlier, once it's out there, it's very hard to get rid of it. The question is whether things will pop up at the beginning on the first page of your Google search under your name or not. The best strategy that anybody ever shared with me about not having things that you don't want to show up is to get better things to show up first. So it's called search engine optimization, if you're familiar with that. And the way to do that is write blog posts, comment on people's articles and things that you read, so that the crawlers from Google and other search engines will find things that you say and do and put those up first, so that the things that you don't want to appear will be pushed down in importance and appear on page 2 or 3 or 300 or 3000. That's really the most effective strategy that I know about, is to get more positive stuff and have it be more current, and then it will pop up first. Any other questions, Kelvin?
I believe that's all the questions that have been posed.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks everybody. I am really glad that you took the time to participate. Our openness to questions will continue. If you look at the tape or the recording rather, or you think of something later, don't hesitate to drop either Kelvin or myself a note. I hope that you'll join us for the second in the series on networking and spread the word among your friends as well. We will speak with you then, I hope, and I'm going to say goodbye. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Kelvin.
Have a great day, everyone.